Hey guys, going to take you through my leg day workout. If you haven't been to the channel before, welcome. My name is Ryan. I'm an ex-NRL player, now natural bodybuilder who is trying to go for a pro card, and I'm also an online coach. So without further ado, I'm going to take you through my session that I have today. Now this is my second leg day for the week, and it is a hamstring focus day, okay? So a little bit more of a posterior chain focus. Let's kick it off. So you got the first exercise here, going for a machine lying hamstring curl. Okay, now one of the main cues that I would use for this machine is just making sure that the concentric is nice and explosive. Okay, generally we're going to be a little bit stronger in that bottom position, so you want to be nice and explosive out of there so we can really get that momentum and squeeze up and through. Obviously we want to make sure that we're squeezing through the hamstrings, we're not lifting at the hips there, okay, or trying to squeeze through the lower back to try and aid. So really try and take that focus to the hamstring and use the weight accordingly. Obviously we don't want to go too heavy so that we're taking focus off the hamstring. The reason for this exercise is to isolate the hamstrings, so we're getting it after it on that. Another little point here too, guys, if you have a machine at your gym where you can't get a full range of motion, you can try going with a sort of, they've got like a more for shorter legs, and then I suppose for longer legs, and you sort of got like 1 through to 4 or small, medium, large for this little attachment at the bottom here. So usually I would recommend having it closer to the heels, this pad, having it closer to the heels. But if you have a machine that doesn't get a full range of motion, you can go with that shorter setting. So you can see how it's sort of mid, I suppose, shin height, sort of just where the calf is connecting there. If you try that, you'll find that you'll get a little bit more range of motion, as opposed to if I brought the lever out, I actually wouldn't be able to get a full stretch in the hamstrings. So this allows me to get a full stretch. So if you have one of those machines that aren't very good like that, Life's Fitness machine, the one that's next to this, that's the one that I usually use, and that can get a full range of motion. That's an awesome machine. If you have that machine, definitely use it. This hammer strength machine isn't the best, but at the end of the day, if you're pushing hard enough, going close enough to failure, and making sure that you're focusing on the isolation of the hamstrings, you're still going to grow muscle. It's just minute details. But if you have the choice between the two, I would definitely be choosing the Life Fitness. All right, so yeah, just knocking these out, guys. As I said, making sure that that concentric is nice and powerful, and then controlling the eccentric, so controlling that downward phase, making sure that, especially when you get to that bottom position, that you're nice controlled and really feeling that stretch. Obviously, you'll feel a bit more in the seated hamstring curl, but you still get a nice little stretch in this one, and just making sure that we are nice controlled in that length of position, because that's where we want to spend most of our time. All right. Usually weren't able to today because someone was using this, but usually I would superset these two exercises, so I would just go back and forth. Obviously calf raises aren't really that taxing, don't really get too fatigued from it. I know I think that was CC kicking the lady out. Thank you for going back there, thank you for not getting in the shot. But yeah, usually I'll go back and forth between those two. As I said, calf raises isn't that taxing. Same with hamstring curls, isn't that taxing. And I like to start with these two exercises for all my leg sessions. As I said, it doesn't feel too taxing. And to be honest, doing the calf raises, I feel like I'm able to get into a better squat position. I feel like it opens up my ankles, so I'm able to get into more of a dorsiflexion, so get more knees over toes. So a good opportunity to sort of try for that. Plus, I just feel like it just gets me a little bit warm, a little bit in the mood. Obviously, I'm sort of taking these sets pretty much close to failure, being isolation movements. So that sort of gets my central nervous system fired up. I actually feel like if I went straight into a session and first exercise was going to be barbell back squats, I don't feel as good. Like, it takes me a long time to warm up, takes me a long time to like get the central nervous system going, get everything fired up, get warm. I feel like doing these two exercises, I'm much better when I go into a hinge pattern, which is for this day, and for day one, which is more quad dominant, when I go into a squat pattern, I just feel much better. So give that a try. And obviously you're not leaving the calves till last. So if the calves are a muscle group that you're trying to bring up, I would definitely recommend putting that earlier in the program, so it's more of a focus there, and you got more energy to try and progress and really try and get stuck into it, as opposed to leaving it till the end of the session after you've done squats and stuff like that, where you got nothing left. But this way around, even if you do go hard on the calf raises, you're still going to have plenty in the tank for what I'm about to do now, which is a hinge pattern and a squat pattern after this. So if you follow me on Instagram, you probably would have seen that I'm having a little bit of hamstring issues. So this is from my rugby league career, where I've I've done MRIs on it. It's pretty much just like half of my tendon is attached on one of the hamstrings. So yeah, not ideal. But from time to time it does flare up, and it's been really good for probably 2 or 3 years. And I've had barbell RDL, and I do love barbell RDL, but yeah, it's starting to cause a little bit of grief. So I swapped it out, probably going on about 3-4 months ago now. Was doing the 45-degree back extension. That was going really nicely, but it's hard to load. It's a little bit awkward. It's a pain in the ass to set up. I was using like a barbell to load it up to try and get enough just enough load to create enough tension. But that went really well, served its purpose. Now I've sort of graduated to this. Main reason I'm using this is it doesn't feel like it puts as much tension in the lengthened position, which I know is sort of counterintuitive to what I say. We obviously want to make sure that we've got a lot of tension in the lengthened position, but that massive tension that I get from a barbell RDL is just, it's too painful, and then it's sort of carrying on throughout the day. Whereas this, I feel like I get a pretty good stimulus. I was actually quite sore last week, so I'm hoping that I'll be a little bit sore again this week. So that's a good indication that it's probably pretty stimulative. And plus, like, I'm having no issues with the hamstring tendon that I was getting with the barbell RDLs. So if you're someone who maybe has a little bit of back issues, maybe has some hamstring tendon issues or anything like that, or you just want a bit of variation, this is actually quite a nice movement. Feels quite nice. I was doing this for higher reps. Again, sort of taking the load back a little bit from the hamstrings. I know when I was doing sets of 6 and 7 and 8 on the barbell RDLs, it was really hurting the tendon there that I was having issues with from my previous injury. Whereas this, because you're so locked in, you don't have to worry about the technique of it. I just feel like you can just get stuck into it and you can just knock out some higher reps, and it actually feels quite nice. So yeah, I'll just run this for a little bit and see how it goes. As I said, if you want to give it a try for a little bit of variation, yeah, it feels pretty good. One thing I will say though, is a lot of people I see will face the other way. Now, when you're doing hinge patterns, you want the bar, the handles, whatever you're using. It's the same if you have a slanted Smith machine. You want the bar or the handles to be heading towards the bum, so to be heading backwards, okay? So in this, when the handles come down, they're heading back towards my ass, I suppose you could say, or back towards my hips. Instead, if I was facing this way, it would be heading away from the hips. So therefore, it's placing more tension on the lower back because it's in a more, I suppose you could say, disadvantaged position. Or the hamstrings are in a bit more of a disadvantaged position because you're pushing your hips back and the load's coming back with the hips. It's in a much better position as opposed to reaching forward. It's sort of like, if you were to think of a crane, when the weight goes out in the crane, obviously it places more tension here. So it's the same with when you're using bars or in this case handles. If the handles are going further away, it's just placing tension on this point, which is your lower back. So yeah, if you're ever to use one of these machines or a slanted Smith machine, definitely make sure that when you come down, it's heading back towards you, not away from you. So a little tip on that one there, guys. But yeah, felt pretty nice. Felt pretty nice. It's going well. And then for this next one is my last one. It is a Smith machine hack squat. So I really like these. Actually, I've been running these for a little while now. They feel really nice. It kind of looks slanted in this position, but it's actually not slanted, it's straight up and down. Slanted kind of feels weird on my knees. I'll definitely like the straight up and down more. Heaps of people different. Some people swear by slanted. So I would definitely be trying that for yourself. One thing I will say is obviously just trying to get into that deep position. A lot of the times I see people doing squat patterns and stuff like that and sort of finishing well before this bottom position. As I said, if you look at all the research coming out about how the lengthened position is going to be more growth promoting, it's hard to argue why you wouldn't be getting as deep as possible to try and get as much tension in that position. So yeah, that's kind of my main cue for that, and my main tip for that is, yeah, just trying to get it as deep as you can. Obviously, while still keeping tension on the quads there. I definitely don't have enough ankle mobility to bottom out at the bottom, where you're just sort of resting on your calves essentially. I definitely don't have enough ankle mobility. So for some people, maybe they need to bring it up a little bit to make sure that there's still tension on the quads. Definitely not for me that I come to a dead stop. That's definitely not the thing. And also another thing that I like to do is just chucking the safety pins on the side there. One, I suppose, yeah, like it's for safety, but it also just gives me a good guide as to where I'm going to. So I just come down until I get a gentle touch of those little safety pins on the side there, and then I just head back up just to guarantee that I'm getting that full range of motion. But yeah, feeling quite nice this one. I will say, like, as you're going into deeper positions, and like definitely as I started incorporating this more, as sort of the research started to come out a couple of years ago, I was like, man, I just have to get into this deep squat position. I will say that, like, your knees will feel a little bit funky. I would definitely encourage you guys, if you are looking to find these greater ranges of motion, to potentially leave say a squat pattern or a pressing pattern or anything like that you're trying to incorporate it in. Maybe save that to the end of the session, where you would tend to go a little bit lighter. So say if you're doing a quad day like this, maybe you would do your normal Smith machine, where you wouldn't go as low, so you're still getting a really good stimulus, you're still driving progression through the weight and stuff like that. And then potentially on another exercise, so you might like chuck in a leg press as well that day, or you might chuck in like a pendulum, just to get a little bit of a different feel. Or maybe you want to take that axial fatigue off the lower back by doing a leg press. Potentially you could start to experiment with a little bit lower or deeper ranges of motion, lighten the weight up a little bit. I definitely found that sort of help for me. I will say that, like, it's just getting used to the movement pattern. It's not that there's any inherent danger of doing it. If anything, they've kind of shown that it might be actually protective in the long term by going into those deeper ranges of motion, because you're stronger through a greater range of motion rather than being strong in a shorter range of motion. So it can potentially be injury preventing over the long term. But I will say, for me, it did feel a bit funky at the start. But yeah, definitely just persist with it. Now I don't feel anything, and it just feels awesome. Feels super smooth. And I will say, like, from day to day, even sort of when we're doing warm-up for classes and stuff like that, I feel I can get into a deep squat. I feel really good in it. Even from just day to day, I just feel much better. Less niggles, less sort of like groin issues and stuff like that I had during footy and stuff. So would definitely recommend it. Not only from a muscle growth standpoint, but just from like a day to day and just feeling good. Would definitely recommend trying to explore and experiment with those larger ranges of motion. You've literally, from what I can tell, it's like all upsides. Better for injury prevention, better for muscle growth. So, and if you can go ask the grass, it just kind of looks cool, doesn't it? You know what I mean? So yeah, guys, so that's pretty much the session. That's pretty much me. Pretty chilled. Like, so I do 3 sets on that lying hamstring curl. I do 4 sets of calves with like an extended sort of partial range of motion. I go a little bit more in detail. I might actually talk about it in the next leg day that I do. And then I do 2 sets on that hinge RDL with the machine there. And then I do 3 sets on the Smith machine hack squat here. And then I usually do abs after this as well, but I didn't get to film that, and just 3 sets of abs. So yeah, not a huge day. Being sort of men's physique athlete, the need for having big legs isn't that much of an issue. So I don't really allocate too much volume to it. I feel like it's enough, and I'm seeing some growth. I could definitely accelerate that by prioritizing a little bit more. But to be honest, I'm not. Yeah, like for me, it's much better for me to have a bigger upper body, considering my legs are covered by board shorts anyway. I mainly just train them for just everyday function. And plus, yeah, I don't want to obviously have chicken legs, so that's another reason as well. And I enjoy it. I enjoy training legs, but I definitely wouldn't want to allocate too much more volume to it, just purely because of the fatigue factor of it. It just doesn't make sense to fatigue myself so much when I can put more into the upper body, which is going to put me in better stead when it comes to walking on stage. To have a better upper body than when I do legs. So I'm just rambling here at the moment, so I'm going to cut this off. As always, guys, if you have any questions, please do let me know. Do all those good things like subscribe and share. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one.